Has your bank or broker ever said, we'll just link your properties together? It'll be easier. That one little sentence has quietly trapped thousands of Aussies investors. In this video, I'll show you how cross-collateralization works, why banks love it, and when following their advice can completely kill your property strategy. Stay till the end because I'm going to walk you through one simple structure that gives you almost all the same borrowing power the bank is offering without tying all your properties together. And I'll show you a real lifestyle example where two almost identical couples ended up in completely different positions purely because one said yes to cross-collateralization and the other said no. All right, let's talk about cross-collateralization, or what the banks often call linking your properties together. On the surface, it sounds neat and tidy. One bank, one set of loans, all your properties in one nice little package. But in reality, that nice little package can turn into a handcuff for your entire portfolio. In this video, we're going to unpack what cross-collateralization actually is in plain English, why banks quietly love it, but it often hurts you, 3 big traps that most investors don't see until it's too late, when it might be okay, and when you should absolutely push back. And finally, a simple alternative structure that keeps you in control, not the bank. If you're thinking about the equity in your home to buy investments, or you've already got more than one property in the same bank, this is critical. Let's get into it. First up, what are we even talking about? Cross-collateralization is when one lender uses more than one property as security for one or more loans. So instead of property A, property B, loan B, you've got something more like property A and property B to one big loan, or a bunch of small loans that are all tied together behind the scenes. Here's a simple example. You've got your home in Melbourne worth, let's say $800,000. You've got a loan on it for $400,000. So you've roughly got about $400,000 of equity. So you go to the bank and say, I want to buy an investment property in Brisbane for $600,000. And the bank says, no worries. We'll just put both properties as security. That way you don't need a single cash deposit. We'll lend you the whole amount and keep it all nice and simple. Sounds super convenient, right? What they don't highlight is that from that point on, the bank has one giant claim over both of your properties. You don't have a clean line of separation between your home and your investments anymore. And that's where the fun begins. So let's be fair for a second. There are reasons bank suggests cross-collateralization. From their point of view, it gives them more security. If one property drops in value, they still have another one to lean on. It reduces their risk because your loan is backed by a bigger pool of assets, and it keeps you sticky as a customer. It's much harder for you to refinance just one loan away to another bank. All of them is great, but for them. But for you, from your side, cross-collateralization often means less flexibility to sell or restructure just one property, more complexity every time you want to make a move, and more power for the bank in any negotiation. So let's make this real with the story. I want you to imagine 2 couples, same incomes, same goals. They both want to build a portfolio of 3 to 4 properties over the next decade. So let's look at couple 1, Sarah and Tom. They own a home in Sydney worth $900,000 with a loan of $450,000 on it. They go to the bank to buy a $650,000 investment property in Adelaide. The bank says, great news. We'll link the properties together. We'll use your Sydney home as extra security and give you 100% loan for the Adelaide place. No need for cash. Easy. So they ended up with one lender, 2 properties, loan structured so both properties are in one big security pool. They think, that's neat. A lot less paperwork. Now introducing couple 2, Alex and Jess. Same starting points, home in Sydney, $900,000 with a loan of $450,000. They want to buy Adelaide investments for $650,000. But they went to a broker who says, we're going to avoid cross-collateralization. First, we'll do a separate equity release from your home. Let's say $130,000 to cover the deposit and costs. Then we'll get a standalone investment loan of around $520,000 secured only by the Adelaide property. So their setup becomes loan one, their home loan, which is $450,000 secured by their Sydney home. Loan two, which is an equity release of $130,000, which is secured by their Sydney home. But then they've got a third loan, an investment loan of $520,000, which is secured only by the Adelaide property. So in scenario one, there's a big tangled web of loans. In scenario B, we've got three separate arrows. We've got home, you've got loans 1 and 2, as well as your investment loan. Same overall debt, same overall security, but completely different level of control. Now let's say we fast forward 5 years and see what happens. Back to Sarah and Tom, the first couple. 5 years in, life happens. They've had a baby. One income has dropped. They decide, let's sell the Adelaide place to reduce our stress. Under a cross-collateralized setup, they can't just call the bank and say, please close the Adelaide loan and leave the Sydney alone. The bank now looks at the total picture. What is the current value of the Sydney home? What is the current value of the Adelaide home? What are the total loans remaining? And what is their lending policy at the time? The bank might say, sure thing, you can sell Adelaide, but because you're over our max loans to value ratio, when we reassess everything, we're going to use most of the sale proceeds, not just to pay out the Adelaide debt, but we're also going to pay down your Sydney loan. In other words, the bank decides how much you're allowed to keep from the sale. Now flip to couple two, Alex and Jess. They also decide to sell the Adelaide property because the Adelaide loan is standalone, secured only by that property. The sale process is simple. They sell Adelaide, they pay off loan 3, they walk away with the remaining equity from that property, subject only to that one loan. The Sydney home loans, so loans 1 and 2, the equity release and the normal home, they don't even get dragged into it. Same life event, very different levels of bank control. So here's another one. Imagine in a downturn or even just a flat period, one of your properties gets a poor valuation. Under cross-collateralization, the bank looks at your portfolio as one big pot. If one property is down, they may decide your overall LVR is now way too high. They won't release equity from any property, or they'll only let you refinance if you put extra cash. That can completely stall your strategy. You might have one property that's flat or down, but another that's done really well and has real equity in it. Under separate securities, you can often still access equity from the winner, even if the loser's stuck. Under collateralization, the loser can drag everything down. So banks love sticky customers, right? Cross-collateralization makes you incredibly sticky. If your whole portfolio is tangled up with one lender and you think, I might get better interest rate or even better structure with another bank. It's not just a simple refinance of property B. To move one loan, the new bank often wants security over related property as well, or the existing bank insists on reshuffling all the securities. It means multiple valuations, legal documentation, and sometimes the deal just doesn't stack up on the bank's new policy, even if one of the properties alone would. So you end up staying put, even if the pricing or customer service is terrible. Your flexibility is gone. Now, is cross-collateralization always evil? Not necessarily. There are a few edge cases where it might be tolerable, as long as you understand the exit plan. For example, short-term bridging loans. When you're selling one property and buying another, the bank temporarily uses both as security until the sale settles. The key is that it's short-term and you know when it unwinds. And small, simple portfolios. If you're absolutely certain you will only ever own 2 properties and you're very conservative with debt, cross-collateralization might not hurt you. The problem is most investors say that, and then 5 years later, they want a third or a fourth property. Even in those cases, many brokers would say, if we can avoid cross-collateralization without losing borrowing power, let's avoid it. So let's treat cross-collateralization as a last resort, not the default. Remember earlier I promised I'd show you a simple structure that gives you most of the same borrowing power without handcuffing your properties together. Let's go back to the basic example and walk you through the numbers. So let's say you've got a home worth $800,000. The existing loan is $400,000. the bank will comfortably go to 80% LVR on your home without lender's mortgage insurance. 80% of $800,000 is $640,000. That means, in theory, you could have total loan secured against your home of $640,000. You already owe $400,000, so there is $240,000 in potential usable equity. Now you want to buy an investment worth $600,000. Let's assume about $30,000 in costs. That's stamp duty, legals, inspections, etc. Just to keep the numbers simple. That's a total project cost of around $630,000. If you want to keep the investment loan at, let's say, 90% LVR on that property, you'd borrow $540,000 against the investment property itself, and you'll need $90,000 as a deposit and the costs. So where does this $90,000 come from? It comes from a separate equity release against your home. So your final structure could be home has the original loan, it has the $90,000 equity release, right? Your total against the home is $490,000, which is still below the 80% of the total value, which was $800,000. And your investment property will have its own loan of $540,000, which is only secured against that investment property itself. Now, compare that to a typical cross-collateralization setup. The bank might offer one big combined limit of $1 million secured by both properties. Structurally simple for them, but everything is tied up. With the separate security setup, you've used your home's equity, but you've got a high LVR loan on the investment, but each property has its own loan, and you can technically sell either one without automatically dragging the other into it. It's subject to normal bank assessments. That's the payoff. Same end goal, use equity to buy. Different path, you keep the optionality here. So what you actually say when the bank or even your broker says, we'll just secure this new loan against both your properties. Here are some simple, respectful pushbacks you can literally read off. Can we please structure this so each property only secures its own loan? Short, direct, asking for separate securities. Or, I'd prefer to release equity from my home as a separate split, then have a standalone investment loan secured only by the new property. That signals you understand structure. They're less likely to fob you off. And 3, if we do cross-collateralize, what happens if we want to sell just one property in a few years? Make them spell out the consequences. That alone can change their tune. And what are my options if I want to refinance or move one of these properties to another bank later? If the answer sounds messy, you've just confirmed your intuition. A good broker or banker will either show you a way to avoid cross-collateralization or explain clearly why, in your specific case, it's very hard to do so without severely hurting borrowing power. If they get defensive, vague, or dismissive, that's a red flag right there. So look, if this is starting to ring alarm bells because you've already got 2 or 3 properties with the same bank, you're not alone. Drop a comment below. How many do you have and whether you know if they've cross-collateralized or not. If you're not sure, just hit the like button and subscribe. If you want more plain English breakdowns like this for Aussie investors, it really does help this content reach more people who needs to hear it. So I want to be crystal clear before we finish up on a few situations where, in most cases, you should not just follow your bank's suggestion to link the properties. Using your home to secure speculative investments. If the only way the bank will fund a deal is to tie your family home together with a very risky regional or off-the-plan purchase, stop and think. You're putting your safest asset on the line for one of your riskiest. 2, relationship or business partner situations. If you're buying with a partner, friend, or family member, and the bank wants to cross-secure against everyone's homes and investments, you're building a very messy web, and unwinding that in a breakup, divorce, or falling out can be brutal. 3, aggressive multi-property strategies. If your goal is 3, 4, 5 or more properties, cross-collateralization from the start can make every move harder. You want maximum flexibility and the ability to shift lenders, sell selectively, and restructure as you go. And 4, anytime you don't fully understand how it works, this one's simple. If your bank can't explain the structure on a single piece of paper, and you can't explain it back to a friend in 1 minute, it's probably too complex and too lender friendly. Banks are not evil. but they are not your personal financial planner. Their job is to lend you money in a way that protects them first. Your job is to build a structure that protects you and your strategy. So if you're watching this and thinking, I have no idea if my loans are cross-collateralized and I don't want to stuff this up, that's exactly the kind of problem we help here at Investor. Inside Investor, we help you map out your 10-year property strategy in a way that doesn't box you in. Use our tools to model your borrowing power, equity, and cash flow under different loan structures. And if you want guided help back, we can connect you with a broker and agents who actually understand investment grade structuring, not just whatever's easiest for the bank. There's a link below this video. If you want a second set of eyes on your current loans, or you're about to buy and you want to get the structure right from day one, book a free strategy call. We'll go through what you own now, how your loans are set up, and what needs to change so you can grow your portfolio without handing all the power to one lender. No pressure, no hard sell, just clarity so you can decide your next move with confidence. Thanks for watching. Hit the like if this helps, subscribe to next week's deep dive, and I'll see you in the next one.